Call me crazy, but you could have played that game twice on Saturday night, and the Stars were still not going to get anything on the Panthers.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, December 15th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and we are your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, the host of the show, and you can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. You can do that all on FanDuel. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. Today, we are going to discuss the Panthers 4-0 shutout win over the Dallas Stars. We are also going to discuss in segment number 2 whether the Florida Panthers are a team or a club, and you guys know the answers to that, but let's discuss that a little bit more in the show, shall we, based on what we saw on Saturday night. And then we are going to preview Monday night's game between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning as they wrap up their 4-game road trip, as they guaranteed a 500 road trip in this one with their dominant win over the Dallas Stars. And for the Panthers, getting a goal 19 seconds into the second period, but even prior to that, with the lack of space that there was between both teams, the shot total as far as shots on goal were a 4 combined from both teams. But you saw how the middle of the ice was not available for either of the teams from them. And I mean, you talk about how the Panthers even went on a very late penalty kill in the second period. And one of the most dangerous things about this Dallas Stars team, especially under their, I guess you could call them new, because most recently, even though this is his second stint with the Stars, Glenn Gulletson, they were operating at a 40% at home, and then the Panthers really set the tone early on, late in that first period, with not even allowing a shot on goal from them, and the Panthers getting more shots on net on the penalty kill all night long than the Dallas Stars had shots while on the man advantage. And the fact that the Panthers were beating guys like Miro Heiskanen back towards the end boards when it came to just making a couple of moves and wasting a little bit of time on the penalty kill. There was one point where Brad Marchand was going to cut in and then goes back to the end boards and then circles back and then goes in to waste more of that time. And then you talk about the chances against and then also drawing a penalty late into the second period as well from Eetu Luostarinen, where he drew that interference call on Ilya Lyubushkin as well. So you talk about how, and even with that same penalty, one of those penalty kills, Mikko Rantanen was coming up the middle, which was one of the penalties that Aaron Ekblad went to the box for. And then, Jeff Petrie not playing a lot of penalty kill time, that he was able to get the stick in the lane of Mikko Rantanen when he was going up the gut, and also Gus Forsling collapsing back in to give Bob a little bit of a rest on the night. Yeah, there were 15 shots on goal. Yeah, we saw 15 shots against for Sergei Bobrovsky in that game against the Vancouver Canucks just a few weeks ago, where there's a lot of those shots that were high danger, although the shot volume wasn't there. So that whole question of, does Sergei Bobrovsky need to face more shots versus a higher volume? We've seen that he could definitely face both of those situations. I mean, when you talk about how many games he's played and the fact that he's seen so many different things throughout his career, he could adjust to any type of game that you put right in front of him as well. And yeah, let's talk about we've seen some of these highlight reel goals from the Panthers over the years. But man, did Saturday night really provide them when Anton Lundell got behind the D. They were using more stick instead of body, and then Jake Ottinger comes out of his crease, and then nice little toe drag to get it back to the forehand, and then right back and in as well. And then the Panthers also getting an opportunity to use their forecheck to create more of the opportunities and time in the offensive zone, where they had the Duchesne line stuck in there, a broken stick. It was the period where it's the long change. So even with a slight clear out of their own third of the ice, right when the Bennett Marchand line got back in, they were able to come back with speed more, and then just throw the puck on net, and then it's off of Hurakoen. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that name incorrectly, and then off of Sam Bennett's leg and in, but no kicking motion. And we saw kind of it's funny because obviously when certain teams go on long playoff runs, you kind of get familiarized with their arena music as well. For example, when the Dallas Stars go on the power play, Knights of Sidonia by Muse comes on every single time. And also Freebird during a review also comes on. And if you remember, if you were watching the Dallas Stars Jets series last year, there was a really, really long review that had almost the entirety of Freebird playing. And I was thinking that when Sam Bennett's goal went in and they went for the review to review if it was a kick, I was wondering and thinking to myself, are we going to see a repeat of that, of the almost the entirety of Freebird playing throughout this review? But here's also the thing about this the game for the Florida Panthers against the Dallas Stars is the fact that in a normal Florida Panthers game, at least in 2025-26, there's at least 92 shot attempts per game from both teams combined. On Saturday night, there's 78 combined from both teams. So that is down by 22%. More times than not, that favors the Panthers with how they're able to just suffocate and also eliminate speed through the neutral zone. So the fact that the Panthers were able to come out on top with a low shot total, it just shows once again that their system is right at work. But also we saw another highlight reel goal from the Panthers on Saturday night, where Sam Reinhart on the power play, and I'm talking about the power play where uh, Eetu Luostarinen drew the interference call on Ilya Lyubushkin on a breakaway, which Eetu Luostarinen twice we thought that he might have gotten the puck in the back of the net. The broadcast, Steve Goldstein, thought it was a goal. I thought it was a goal on TV, and also the goal, the shot that he had on Scott Wedgwood on Thursday night against the Colorado Avalanche. Against Utah, against Kirill Vejmelka. We thought that was a goal as well, but it was right on the goal line there. But we thought so many times that we thought multiple times over the last week that Eetu Luostarinen was going to get a goal, but Sam Reinhart once again with a nice slick little backhand. And we saw that before, that we've seen that in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. Eyes on the back of his head, he got that one at least in the Stanley Cup Final to Aaron Ekblad, and he was able to one-time it where Stuart Skinner didn't adjust to his right quickly, and he was able to get that. But again, the amount of times that the Panthers were able to use their speed because of the fact that they eliminated it through the neutral zone, and then as the Dallas Stars were still skating forward, they didn't hit the brakes in time in order to skate back, and then that it didn't give them the ability to close in their gaps, and that's why we saw so many of those chances at 5-on-5. And then also the three chances on for the Panthers shorthanded. They're currently 21 of their last 22 on the penalty kill. So that is the bread and butter, the foundation of Florida Panthers hockey. And we also saw towards the end of the game how when the Panthers did go on that late power play where Alexander Petrovich got the 10-minute misconduct for slashing AJ Greer unnecessarily, we saw Paul Maurice put the guys lower down into the lineup on the power play. We've seen that so many times. We saw that in Buffalo in 2024 when the Panthers were up 3-0, and then Ryan Lomberg scores a goal and he skates through the Buffalo bench, kind of showboating there. So we saw multiple of those moments throughout the Paul Maurice tenure there with the Panthers. So another impressive win for the Florida Panthers. Bobrovsky gets his 52nd shutout of his career. As far as total wins, he's 4 away from passing Terry Sawchuk. So he just continues to climb and climb and climb for what he's done in his outstanding career. And also, once again, you got to give a lot of credit to the blue line. I want to give also some credit to Seth Jones. There was one play where Jason Robertson was going to go from his backhand to forehand as he was going up the right wing, and then trying to bring it back as he's a left-handed shot, and then Seth Jones is right there to poke the puck out of his stick quickly, so that he doesn't get even a shot attempt there. Jason Robertson had 0 shots on goal. Mikko Rantanen also had 0 shots on goal, and those are 2 of the best players. And Roope Hintz, another one of those guys who had 0 shots on goal. So 3 of the top scorers, 3 of the top centers, not centers. Hintz is the only center, but 3 of the top players and a top center for the Dallas Stars are getting nothing. As Gene Wilder of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory says, "You get nothing, you lose. Good day, sir." So, aging myself a little bit, even though that movie came out in the early 70s. But yeah, great movie and a great quote to use if your team does in fact stifle the other. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss the Florida Panthers and discuss more of this question, which we know the answer to. Are you a team or are you a club? And the Panthers definitely proved again why they are a team. We are going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. And you realize your business needed to hire someone yesterday? How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where I've had to make the right hire like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day, and now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast with no interruption, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Just go to the link in the show notes below to learn more. So the Panthers, we discussed about how together this team is and how they just follow the culture. And yeah, culture is a big buzzword when it comes to sports, but it really does matter when it comes to being about the team and just following and looking at the blueprint about what a team does well. And then especially whenever the Panthers do get depth guys to come, that is truly important on just how they are able to just comply and just follow the directions that they are asked to do. And in the example that I'm about to discuss here is just about kind of the code of hockey, that when one of your players does uh, get hit, or the opposition does something that you don't like, you're going to stand up for that teammate. In the example of the Buffalo Sabres last year, there was a hit from Stefan Nason that he delivered on Tage Thompson, and the Buffalo Sabres did absolutely nothing about it. Which this season, the Devils and the Sabres met again, and Tage Thompson took it into his own hands about the fight against Stefan Nason for injuring him on the hit as well. I'm expecting that when the Dallas Stars and the New York Islanders do meet up later this year, that the Islanders are going to try to fight Mikko Rantanen for his boarding on Alexander Romanov. That Romanov is going to be out for a while after that collision from the shoulder. I believe it was a shoulder injury, if I'm not mistaken. But even towards later in the game, where Jamie Benn takes down Jack Studnicka, and then Noah Gregor is there standing up for his teammate. Yeah, Jamie Benn won the fight. I'm not going to be Homer about it. Jamie Benn is a tough son of a gun, and honestly, he's one of those people who as far as captains, that I least respect. Honestly, I don't think he's captain material. We've seen it with the suspension in the conference final against Vegas 2 years ago, spraying the water bottle on Connor Bedard, hitting Nazem Kadri in the groin on a face-off once when Kadri was a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I had Dallas Stars fans coming at me as far as that, discussing that, and there's been multiple times throughout years that Jamie Benn has just been a little bit of a goon, and you're supposed to be the captain, the example for your team, and he hasn't been that. I'm not saying he's the reason why this version of the Stars hasn't won a cup. They're still plenty talented, and they certainly can still win, but that behavior from Jamie Benn, I'm not a fan of, from what he's done over the years. But the Panthers, they come to their team's defense. The Petrovic hit on AJ Greer, although Petrovic, he's been a great story, by the way, these last few years. Let me give him that. I know 300 games in 12 years is a little bit of a yikes when you look at it as far as the total. Yeah, Alexander Petrovic came up huge for the Panthers in 2016 in Game 4 against the New York Islanders to tie the series at 2. But over these last 2 years, he was mostly in the AHL and gets called up to play a 6th, 7th defenseman role for the Dallas Stars, and now he's playing in on the second pair for the Stars. But listen, that was unnecessary of what he did to AJ Greer, and the game was over at that point. And then even when the game is over, the Florida Panthers, they're the team who won. They're the team that is. They see this Dallas Stars team only twice a year, which crazy to think, with this season series for the Panthers in this sweep, only one goal at 5-on-5, and that was towards the end of the third period of the first go round for this team. The other 2 goals that they scored were on a double minor. So it's so crazy how well the Panthers have done against Dallas, and Jake Oettinger only has 1 win against the Florida Panthers, which Sergei Bobrovsky only has 21 wins in 25 starts. That's outstanding. But the Panthers coming up to AJ Greer's defense, even after the fact. And you think about teams throughout the NHL who have a whole bunch of culture problems, which sometimes I do think that it starts from the front office and then it trickles down. Look at the trade that happened this past weekend from Vancouver. Quinn Hughes, he was kind of the last domino as far as a big piece to trade out, but this was getting started years before. Let's not forget when the Panthers were hosting the 2023 All-Star game, the Vancouver Canucks were traded Bo Horvat when he wanted an extension. Their captain, is really one of those classy individuals who's really about the team more than himself, and they trade that guy out. You look at the whole JT Miller, Elias Pettersson situation last year, which JT Miller is a fiery guy. He has, yes, the Athletic, I believe they have him as one of those punchable faces up there, but he is one of those guys that you would want on your team. He's a dog. He plays multiple roles: penalty kill, power play, everything. And you trade that guy as opposed to Elias Pettersson, which that contract, when you look at Elias Pettersson, he's a 2C at best, in my opinion. He's rebounded pretty well this season as compared to last. He had a horrible 4 Nations. But you look at the contract, it's a full no move throughout the entirety of it. What's worse, that one or Huberto's? So that is one where you look at it, and they had an opportunity. The Vancouver Canucks front office had an opportunity to trade that before the clauses kicked in as well. So talk about fumbling another one. And then before the Hughes Bowl, before any questions could have been asked about Quinn Hughes and joining the New Jersey Devils, when Jim Rutherford in the summers discussed, oh, I know Quinn wants to go play with his brothers, and saying that out loud publicly. Jim Rutherford is the gift that keeps on giving, by the way, for for the NHL and fans overall. But hey, credit to Jim Rutherford for giving the Panthers for Patrick Hornquist and kind of being a first domino in resetting the culture for the Florida Panthers when Bill Zito first came in. but also he also made that trade that cleared up the cap space of Nick Bjugstad and Jared McCann when they had term left on their deal in order to create that cap space for the Panthers to sign Sergei Bobrovsky. That was a Dale Talon trade at the time. So Jim Rutherford is, once again, the gift that keeps on giving. And then another team that I could name, Chris Drury of the New York Rangers, threatening, sending out memos about players and then it getting out to the public, and then threatening waivers with guys like Jacob Trouba, which his game was slowing down. Let's not deny that. But the fact that off the ice, Jacob Trouba's wife was still going through a nursery program in New York, and they didn't want to move. But at the same time, just threatening and say, hey, this team that's on your no trade list, on your 12 team, I believe it was. I don't have that memorized on the top of my head, but one of the teams that were on his trade list, you're gonna take them off, or else we're gonna send you through waivers. So it's just we also realize that this league is also a little bit cutthroat as well. So you look at the situation with the Panthers, where Paul Maurice discusses how nobody complains about ice time. They are well about the team, and this is also another sense of appreciation where we as viewers of this Florida Panthers team, we see that we don't see them with any bad PR coming out for what they do. They just win and they go about their business. The ownership paid off all their debts. They're ready to do more renovations inside the arena, which, funny enough, the renovations inside the arena won't really get started unless the Panthers get eliminated early. Go figure. But we don't want that. We want extended playoff runs over and over again, which that's why they didn't do the renovations to the upper level to make a more fan-friendly zone, kind of like how we see at the Tampa Bay Lightning Arena, the Orlando Magic Arena. So if you look those up for what they have there, that's kind of what the Panthers' idea is, but they could still do stuff outside of the arena, which, again, they have a great relationship with the politicians of Broward County, which with paying off everything that they owed. So again, it's a group that has one heartbeat, one I know that's a little bit of a corny saying, but it's true for what the Panthers are doing. And also, let's discuss a little bit of the opponent that the Panthers face on Saturday night. I don't think the Dallas Stars have a culture problem as far as their front office and coaching staff, but there is a little bit of bad PR from their ownership group, because if you're not caught up with everything, their ownership group is in a little bit of a lawsuit, countersuit as well with the Dallas Mavericks over their own arena. So there's also a little bit of trouble on what the future is for the Stars, as far as whether they're going to stay in downtown or go to the suburbs as well. It's very messy. If you want to look up more of details of what's going on there in Dallas, I highly recommend the YouTube page for Brody Brazil, who actually works on the San Jose Sharks broadcast for NBC Sports California. He has a very big detailed breakdown on everything that's going on with that arena war in Dallas. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to preview tonight's game between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning as they end their 4-game road trip and hope to get 6 out of 8 points to end it. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel makes you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, and totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every step, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. And I want to send a congratulations to Dade County native Fernando Mendoza for winning the Heisman Trophy, a Cuban American from Miami who won the award, and he was a 2-star recruit committed to Yale in his senior season right before going to Cal, and then an undefeated Indiana Hoosiers season. So South Florida, another player on the rise there, as somebody who used to live around 15-20 minutes there, as someone who no longer lives in the South Florida region. I'm very proud of Fernando for getting that honor. But Florida Panthers play the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight from Benchmark International Arena, which we will be heading there for tonight's game between these two teams, as the Florida Panthers, since their last matchup on November 15th in Sunrise, they are 7-5-1, while the Lightning are 9-5-1. The Lightning have played 2 more games, so their records are identical. And this is kind of a big game for the Panthers here as they continue to chase certain teams from the Atlantic Division, which the Montreal Canadiens did play a back-to-back this weekend against the New York Rangers and against the Edmonton Oilers, which they won on Sunday night. They lost in overtime against the Rangers, which in Jacob Fowler's second start. But 2 games in hand against the Boston Bruins as well. And if the Panthers do win both of those games in hand, which, yes, you have to win those games in hand, they only matter if you end up winning, the Panthers will own the tiebreaker over the Bruins. And right now the Bruins have the final wildcard spot as of right now. Panthers do have 3 more matchups against Montreal, and it's a big one coming up on December 30th in Sunrise, right before the Winter Classic. As far as game result, that will matter a little bit more than the actual game of the Winter Classic, although it's more high profile for the Winter Classic as far as like where it's going to be a celebration of the game. But as far as the standings go and the division and what it means, that matchup against Montreal in a few weeks is big. But both of these teams, like I mentioned, their records since their last matchup on November 15th, they're also both 5-4-1 in their last 10. But Panthers came out flat in the last matchup. I mean, there was no Victor Hedman, no Anthony Cirelli, no Ryan McDonough, no Nick Paul. Since then, 3 of those 4 guys are back. Victor Hedman did attempt to come back, but he re-injured the same injury that he did recently, so he's going to be out for a long period of time. So came back a little bit earlier than he should have. But hockey players are warriors in this gladiator sport that we love so much. You want to try to tough it out and to try to be there for your team. And you know what? They were winning without him. Guys like Darren Radish was taking over on that top power play unit, which Darren Radish scored in their last matchup against the Panthers. But the Tampa Bay Lightning, as of right now, things could change because the Lightning haven't even hit the ice for a morning skate. Their chances are they could be without Andrei Vasilevsky, who was placed on IR, not LTIR, regular IR, which you're out a minimum of a week. Just for they do that for the roster spot so they could bring somebody up, which their third goaltender was called up. So he could be activated as soon as today and get the start against the Panthers. So be on the lookout for that. But I remember last year we were talking about Jonas Johansson, who spent 1 season with the Panthers. We saw the one game where it was a little bit of a disaster against the Columbus Blue Jackets against JF Berube, and when JF Berube was the goaltender there, and he gives up 6 goals, and then the one game where he gives up 10 in game 82 of the President's Trophy season. But we thought that the Panthers had Jonas Johansson right where we wanted him, but you saw on that first end of the back-to-back, Panthers get the win. It's Spencer Knight versus Andrei Vasilevsky. The backup beats the starter on one end, and it happens again. The backup beats the starter, where Jonas Johansson beats Sergei Bobrovsky, and that game was over very quickly last year in Sunrise. And that was the same game where Nikita Kucherov got that knee-on-knee collision on Matthew Tkachuk, and then Matthew Tkachuk was thankfully able to return. But this year, in Jonas Johansson starts versus last year, which he got a total of 19 last year. Right now, Jonas Johansson has started 13 games, so he's on pace for a bigger load than he was last year. But The blue line for the Tampa Bay Lightning are protecting Jonas Johansson a lot more, which they're giving up 5 less shots per game on goal, which that you see that in the save percentage being up, and then the goals against average being down for Jonas there. So they're playing a lot better against them. And you know what? We're still waiting, and hopefully it's not tonight for the Lightning, that of the sleeping giant waking up with Braden Point. We know what he could do with his speed on the power play at the net front, but he only has 5 goals there. And we've seen a guy like Sam Bennett, in the case of the Panthers, waking up over these last 13 games and making a case once again for Team Canada, which we've heard a lot of noise about. Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, and then people discuss who is the guy who's going to be out. A lot of the national pundits are saying Sam Bennett could be that guy out. But the Florida Panthers have had great success in Tampa Bay since their second round sweep in 2022. So you guys want to guess what the Panthers record in Tampa since 2022 is? I'll let you pause for a moment to think. There has been 11 matchups between these two teams. How many wins do you think the Florida Panthers have, postseason included? All right, time's up. 8. They're 8-3 in their last 11 matchups there, and one of those games was game 82, where Panthers were playing their AHL squad mostly, and that was the same game where Jesse Puljujarvi hit Mitchell Chaffee in the head and knocked them out of the game, and also the first round series just a few days later there. But the Panthers have had great success there, and including that front of a back-to-back, the Spencer Knight versus Andrei Vasilevsky game, where Panthers got 2 shorthanded goals in 1 penalty kill, Eetu Luostarinen and AJ Greer. Let's not forget that. And the Panthers have Panthers hopefully can continue that, as this will be one of their 2 visits to Benchmark International Arena. The first one will be tonight, and then the second one will be right before the Olympic break. But you're going to get 3 out of the 4 matchups done before the new year even starts, because the Panthers will once again see the Tampa Bay Lightning right before the Panthers have that back-to-back at home against the Capitals and Canadiens. And that's the day of the holiday break is over, where the Tampa Bay Lightning will have to travel to South Florida the day of the game and then do a skate. So keep that in mind for that future matchup. But the Panthers, if you look at it in little segments, and if they get a win tonight and you see 6 out of 8 points, that is on track, and hopefully in a place where the Panthers could be in a better trajectory than they were, especially when we saw recently of losing 5 straight at home. And it really starts with getting opportunities on the power play, which in the last matchup, their only goal was a power play goal by Brad Marchand, a quick face-off win, and then Brad Marchand gets behind the defense, a little bit of a drive to the net in the low slot, and then he scores there. We hope that there's more offense than that this time around in Tampa Bay, which the last time these two teams met there, Eetu Luostarinen, Anton Lundell, and Brad Marchand had one of the games of their life there. So we hope to see another one of those on Monday night in Tampa. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the show. Tomorrow on the show, we are going to actually do a morning podcast there instead of an immediate reaction, because we will be at tonight's game in the Gulf Coast, as I will be driving back immediately home after the game, as I live a few hours away from Tampa, and then covering the game, getting the interviews, and then driving back. So won't get home until midnight, but we will be up early on Tuesday morning to record the show and break down more of this game between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. We hope that it's a W for this Cats team. But thank you as always for listening. And in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.